Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. This is Kathy, and today I'll be sharing how to create these cute little treat holders for Halloween. I'll be using the new Spooks and Spells stamp set, paper from the Starring Hearts and Licorice Paper Packs, and I'll be using the circle die from the Slimline Card Builder die set. To start out, you'll need 3 pieces of cardstock that measures 2 1/4 by 3 1/8. And with the 3 1/8 side up at the top of your scoreboard, you're going to score at 5/8 of an inch, which is the notch just past the 1/2 inch mark, 1 1/4 inch, 1 7/8 inch, which is 1 notch below the 2 inch mark, and then at 2 1/2 inches. And you do need to make 3 of these little test tube sleeves. These pieces are actually going to go inside the treat box just to hold the test tubes kind of apart from each other and also add a little bit of stability so that they don't flop around too much. Anyway, after the scoring is done, you want to burnish those score lines really very well. Then you're going to fold it over to make an open-ended box. Then you want to apply adhesive on one of the flaps and put it together so it's a square shape. Next, we're going to move on to creating the actual carrier for the little test tubes. And for that, you'll need a piece of cardstock that measures 3 1/2 by 9 1/2. You'll score on the 3 1/2 inch side at 3/4 of an inch and 2 3/4 of an inch. Then you'll rotate your cardstock with the 9 1/2 inch side at the top of your scoreboard. You want to score at 2 3/4 of an inch and 3 1/2 inches. And then when you get to the final scoring, you're going to want to score at 6 1/4, but you only want to score down to the very first perpendicular score line. And then you kind of want to follow it down to the bottom and score beneath the second perpendicular score line. I really didn't trust myself in getting that lined up perfectly straight, so I grabbed my ruler just to use as a guide. And of course, after you're done with the scoring, you want to fold along those score lines and make sure that you burnish really very well using your bone folder. Next, you're going to cut along some of these score lines to create the flaps and the top of the box. So with the cardstock horizontal, you want to cut on the short score lines up to the first perpendicular score line. And then when you get up to this part here where you only did a partial score, you're going to cut along the long score line to cut out that long skinny rectangle. We do need to remove that piece completely. My suggestion is to use a long pair of scissors instead of short scissors. On my first piece that I cut out there, I didn't get it cut perfectly straight. I'll come back and fix that in a moment. Another thing that I like to do is when I'm cutting out flaps for a box is I'll cut a little bit of a sliver at an angle out. It just helps the boxes fold up a little bit more cleanly. If you prefer, you could use your paper trimmer to cut out that long rectangle as well. To put the box together, it's really very simple. You're going to take the smallest flaps and you want to push those on the inside. And then the short piece at the bottom is going to fold up and be adhered to the flaps on the long piece in the back. So you do want to make sure that you burnish those flaps that are up along the back there. You want to burnish those really, really well. It'll make it easier to apply the adhesive. I would recommend a really very strong adhesive for this part here, and you want to put the adhesive on those flaps while they're folded in towards the center. Remove the release paper, tuck in the tiny flaps at the bottom of the box, and then fold up the front of the box and just press really well to make sure that the adhesive sticks. Now that the carrier for the little test tubes is complete, we're going to go back to the little sleeves that we made at the very beginning. You do want to adhere them together so that it's one piece that'll fit inside the carrier for the little test tubes. I used score tape to adhere these 3 little sleeves together. You could use liquid glue or a tape runner for this. I just used my score tape because it was on my table. The biggest thing to pay attention to when adhering these together is you want to make sure that they're lined up as straight as possible so that they're level when you put them inside the carrier. After I had the little sleeves adhered together, I did put them inside the box because I wanted to put a piece of patterned cardstock on the front, and it would just make it easier. It would add a little bit of support so I could press that patterned paper down so it would adhere really well. The patterned paper is cut to slightly smaller than 2 by 2 3/4, and I did use liquid glue to adhere that. I put a piece of foam tape up at the very top of the box. I cut the circle from yellow cardstock for a moon, and I put another piece of foam tape at the bottom of the moon. I just wanted to make sure that it was stable up at the top. I did color the bat off screen, but I will have the Copic colors that I use listed over on my blog, and I'll make sure to link to that blog post in the description box below. I did put a bunch of foam tape on the back side of the bat so he would be popped out a little bit. And for the sentiment, I stamped it with red ink and heat embossed it with red embossing powder on a piece of gray cardstock, and die cut that using the smallest rectangle from the Wonky Stitched rectangle die set. And then I adhered that to the front of the box with a little bit of foam tape, and that finishes up our little project for today. I did create a second box using the little witch feet, and I'll have those Copic colors also listed over on my blog, as well as some more information about how I created the labels for the test tubes themselves. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video today. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, I'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.